Hey guys, Dishsoap here with the 13.20B Legend and Comp tier list. And if you want to reference these comps during game, then I'd like to introduce you to the Mobalytics TFT overlay. You get access to the best team comps by challenger experts, myself included, directly in-game. There are also full guides attached to each comp, as well as automatic augment data and an item cheat sheet. Click the link in the description to download. Before the B patch, multicasters were kind of just destroying the meta. They're still strong right now, but definitely not like the only thing that wins games. But yeah, let's just get into it with the legend tier list. I think this is actually a pretty good opportunity to explain how I view tiers for like legends and comps. And you'll notice today I'm not going to have any legends in S tier and even any comps in S tier, which doesn't really make any sense, but hopefully my explanation does. So I think S tier is just something you should always be doing no matter what. A tier is good, that's like the meta. B tier is playable, like you're not really at that much of a disadvantage. And if something works well for your playstyle, sure, like no one's gonna get mad at you for doing it. C is just, I don't really see a point in the legend, and the D tier is just trash. I don't think there's anything that's trash. But currently, I just don't think there's any legends that are optimal right now. There are arguments for, I mean, I can just go through the legends right now. I have Ezreal in A because I think he's probably the best legend for 4-class flex right now. But honestly, I don't really know how good of a playstyle that is at the moment. So he definitely could be around like B power level, but he's the best legend for that strategy in particular. Like for like Azir, like even if you're like flexing on like Multicaster, Xayah, it's pretty decent for it. I moved Poro down from S tier in the last list because of the scope weapons and demon flare nerfs. Those are the two of the biggest high rolls for Poro. Poro is generally just in meta if there are a lot of like default, or if there are a lot of generic like high roll augments. They also nerf stuff like gifts. There's not that many high rolls right now, but he's still decent, just because you get better 3-2, 4-2 on average. Earth's here, because there are a lot of +1 comps that are good. Shurima got a lot better this patch. Noxus is really good this patch. Sorcs pretty good this patch. Demacia Slayer pretty good this patch. That's kind of reason to play Earth. There's also like Void. Void kind of came up in like the last patch, and it's still good now. So a lot of good things to play Earth. That also gives you a lot of direction. Personally, I don't really vibe with him because I feel like when I play Earth, I give up too much early game strength, in my opinion, but it could work for you if you like. I know it works for other good players, so definitely don't think it's bad. And then TF. I think there's a decent argument for this being optimal right now. At least the first couple did the patch, because multicasters are still pretty fucking good, and Nilah Sedge is still pretty good, and Mordekaiser and Nilah Sedge just with like stacking RFCs, and Multicaster is pretty good. I will say though that I don't really think it doesn't really make sense, but I don't really think like those playstyles are very consistent. Like yes, you get consistent items every game, but you still have like to worry about the unit RNG. We'll talk about this later in like the comp tier list, but I think multicasters are pretty unreliable when people are contesting you, so you have to worry about that. In B tier for playable, we have Caitlyn. I think Caitlyn and Lee Sin are basically the same. They're both just reroll augments. I think Caitlyn Gold is better than Trade Sector. I think Lee Sin's Prismatic is better than Caitlyn's. Lee Sin sometimes you can actually take his 3-2, 4-2, and I don't think you ever do that with Caitlyn, but Caitlyn Gold is better, and you see Gold 2 on the most, so sure, they're both just reroll. Caitlyn tempo is not very good. If you want to like a tempo legend, just play like Ezreal or Ornn, in my opinion. Ornn is here as well. He fits the same role as Ezreal. I think he's slightly worse. The merits for Ornn is that Eternal Winter is actually really good at this meta, because Sejuani is the best tank and she uses Eternal Winter really, really well. Azir is kind of back, so you can go like Zani's Azir, but the Ornn item nerfs of a couple patches ago, like still are here, and they still impact the legend, and I don't really think he's the best. Also, Master UB. Personally, I don't really see anyone play this, so maybe I should put him in no point, but pumping up Gunner is actually pretty solid. There's that. Like, he has that going for him. I don't think Gotta Go Fast is good anymore after the nerfs, and Battle Ready is decent for, like, every comp. Bard's in B. He did get a buff to his Silver Augment. I actually think his Silver Augment's super, super good, just in general for, like, either rerolling the 2 costs that you get, or just pushing levels and being strong the entire game. I just don't really think his Gold and Prismatic Augment are very good at all, unless you're in specifically a Galaxy or a Portal that gives you extra econ. He's super reliant on the Portal. If like Barden in a Portal that gives you extra gold is like pretty good, but if he doesn't have the extra gold, you're getting your items way too late compared to other things, and you just kind of fall behind. Lisa, we already talked about. Pingu's here. Piltover with the Aphelios buff is pretty relevant. So I don't know. There's some people in Challenger that take Pingu and roll on 2-5 for 3 Piltover. Honestly, I think they're trolling, but I don't know. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's better than C tier. Vlad here as well. Personally, I don't know why you would play him, but theoretically, he's decent into Shurima slash Bastion of Helios lines. So there's that. And then C tier, no point. I don't think Jewel Lotus 2-1, any of Vigor arguments are very good. A Draven, just too inconsistent to be like a legend choice. Asol, just playing around 5 costs is not very viable right now. And Tomkin should just play Caitlyn or Lee Sin for reroll. Like having extra econ for big 4-cost comps is not really good right now. And then moving on to team comps, I actually put nothing in S tier. And I know this sounds dumb because like I do think there are lots of conditions for like a lot of the comps I talk about to be at the power level of S tier. But in my mind, to be an S tier comp, it has to be somewhat consistent. Consistent as in like you have backup plans, you can like play around different units, you can be stable at 1 star, you don't need very specific augments, you don't need a +1, and also like how good is it if contested. And I don't think any of those comps are consistent enough in that definition to be S tier. So for example, like Multicaster reroll. If you hit TF3, Galio 3, level to 7, Fitz Swain, hit like Vel'Koz Sona 3, yeah, S tier comp. I agree. However, if you're contested and 5-1 rolls around, you're on Galio 2 frontline, and maybe you have like a TF3 or Talia 3 backline, but you're still level 6, you're probably bot 4. And I don't know. I can't really justify putting that in S tier if that's the case. So it's gonna be on you to just see if you're contested or not and like how good your spot is for their comp, depending on like, or like compared to like how good their spot is contesting you. Just to speak about the comp in general, your board on level 6 is for Multicaster, Galio frontline with Demacia. Make sure your Galio gets the Radiant Redemption. Your itemize TF and Galio first, and then you go for Shiv, Morello, and Sona, and then you go for Vel'Koz items. You don't have to have these specific items of Vel'Koz. Mostly just give them whatever you end up naturaling later on. And then level 7 is Swain, but that's like, you don't level until you hit most of your units anyways, so. But yeah, if you hit this comp, and you 3-star everything, very good. If you're contested, good luck. Sona Azir, this is a new variation of Azir that popped up. I actually think this comp has like so much room for optimization because I don't actually think you have to play Nasus, believe it or not. It sounds weird. I've been talking about these Azir comps as like their Nasus comps, but Nasus got a nerf a couple patches ago, and there are a lot of other frontline options that are available in the game that you can definitely consider. But like the cookie cutter version that me and people are playing day one is something like this. Like it makes sense. Like your synergies look pretty, but yeah, I mean, the gist of the comp is that Sona got buffed in order to give a permanent, like when she casts, she gives your teammates that she hits a permanent stacking attack speed buff. So that's really, really good with people like Azir that are scaling attack speed carries. And you could also fit Jarvan for Strategist, so everything just kind of works out. You go for Shiv, Morello, and Sona to give her the tier item, and then you can actually go for no Shiv and Azir and go like 3 actual like carry items. The core of the comp really is Azir, Sona, Talia, to Demacia. Like honestly, I don't even think you like Fiora doesn't really do anything. Like honestly, you might as well just play Galio 2 for more frontline because you never can really itemize the Fiora and Challenger's Fake. And then also you don't even have to play Jarvan. You don't even have to play Nasus. Like you can drop the Nasus. You could do something that like Sedge, which is just straight up a stronger frontline, and then you can fit like Sion, and then you can even fit like Ashe or something. Don't have to go Shiv. Like, I think the comp is, like, super, super flexible. And then also, if you get a +1 Shurima, you can actually, like, drop Demacia and then go back to Nasus, and, actually, you can keep the Jarvan. You can do something like this, and, like, Shurima Spat, and then I guess level 8, go back and add Demacia. Yeah, I think something like this is pretty solid as well if you have a Shurima +1. So anyways, I think the comp is super flexible. The core is just Azir, Sona, Talia, Jarvan +1 Demacia, but very good. In my opinion, I think this is better than Standard Azir, but time will tell. Next up is Void Reroll. This should have been on the last list, but it kind of popped up like a week into the patch. It is what it is. That's what you get when you do list at the start of the patch. Essentially, abusing the burst damage from Vel'Koz and the Rift Herald charge at the start of the fight to instantly like one-tap everyone's frontline and just go for like a burst strategy. Personally, I don't really think it's that good if you don't have a Void Spat because it's a comp that wants you to roll on level 6 for 3 stars, and if you don't hit Kaisa on 6, you're kind of screwed. And also Void Spat helps you at Multicaster. So yeah, I think it's super, super awkward without Void Spat. But if you have Void Spat, I would for sure consider it. Like this is definitely something you can consider from Earth, like a Void off Earth. The main important things is you go for Spark on Kassadin, blue buff on Vel'Koz, get anti-heal somewhere in your comp, either like a Morello Sona or like a Sunfire, and just reroll on 6. Level 7, you can just add like a Talia for more multicaster. I would actually recommend staying on 6 and even rolling for like the 3-cost units on 6, because the gold it takes you to level to 7 is like you're more likely to hit if you just roll on 6 rather than spending gold to go 7. If you're super far off hitting and you need to spike with the +1 multicaster, play for top 4, sure. But generally just roll on 6. Important thing to note, if you end up with like a bunch of void spats, do not go Baron. This Baron is like the noob trap. Why is because Baron doesn't really gain, or he does not gain mana from getting hit, so like he's basically like his auto attacks and he's just kind of slow. Baron is actually decent if you're like not rerolling, if you're playing around like fast 8 into like Kaisa Bel'Veth and all that stuff, it's okay. But if you're playing this reroll comp specifically and you get dropped a bunch of void spots, just use that to play more multicasters and don't like try to push levels and play 8 void, because 8 void is generally not worth it. Thought I would mention, but yeah, I think it's pretty decent. Like if you hit Vel'Koz 3 and a bunch of other 3-stars with the Herald, like the comp can easily win and be like an S tier power level. It's just not consistent because it relies on spat and also relies on being fairly uncontested. So you can't really put that S tier for that reason. Sejuani Nilah probably would have been S tier before the nerfs. They nerfed Nilah specifically, and they also removed scope weapon, which was this comp's best augment. The Scion can be a Vi on 7. Essentially, you just play TF Legend and you go for double RFC plus Giant Slayer and Nilah, and then 3 items on Sedge. I believe the best tank items this meta are Warmog's Declaw, and then Val's very good on Sedge because it like gets the slow at the start, helps you do more true damage. You can push levels for Aatrox. I think as soon as you find GP, you can drop the Nautilus because the GP gives you attack speed and anti-CC. You can add Heimer. This comp actually caps pretty high because you just fit basically every single 5-cost in the game in it. The reason I don't have this comp S tier is that it's fairly reliant on hitting Sejuani too. It's also like pretty reliant on going level 8. So if you're like hard start, if you like roll really deep on 7, did not hit Sedge, not hit Nilah, you can get screwed really hard. So I don't think it's S tier because of that. And it also like it got its best combo dogma removed. I think it's a solid A tier comp. But yeah, TF Legend. Nilah's not nearly as good if she doesn't have double RFC. That's kind of the problem. Ionia Vanquishers. I would not play this comp unless you have specifically Ionia spat. Yeah, I think this comp is not worth playing without it. It's just not powerful enough. The dream is you get a Vanquisher spat after this and you level to 8 for 6 Vank. Like 6/6 is super solid. But yeah, I basically only play this if I get Ionia spat, but it's good. You do carry Nilah and Xayah and have tank items on Shen. Tank items on set 2 for most of the game, then you transfer to Shen later. But yeah, it's a good comp with Ionia +1. I'm not really good without it. Similar thing with Ionia Ashe reroll. It's basically the same comp as the last one, but you reroll Ionia Ashe instead. You can play something very similar to this. Like honestly, even you can play this exact board when you get the boss and just go like reroll Ashe with tank items on the boss. I actually looked at the stats. Damage items on the boss are actually like super mid. You just want to tank. I mean, I don't even think the boss is that good right now in this meta, but I do think Ionia Ashe is solid still if you have the spot for it. It's a lot less contested now, so there's that going for you. Also, they just straight up nerfed Ionia attack speed, so definitely deserves to go down a tier. Next on the list is Strategist here. Honestly, this comp is probably B tier. I think the Sona version's better. Okay, so the thing is, this comp is not that bad. The problem is this comp is just so expensive. You're pretty reliant on hitting Azir 2, Nasus 2, Aatrox, Jarvan 2. Like, you can play Warp before Aatrox, but, I mean, that's not even that good. And then it kind of requires level 8 to fit in, like, another unit. It's like a 5-cost or something that makes sense in your board. It's just so expensive. Why not just play as Sona and be able to flex your frontline and not be reliant on Nasus 2? Yeah, honestly, it's probably a B tier comp. But if you get, like, this exact board and upgrade it, it's good. So there's that. Noxus Tempo. There's argument for this to be S tier as well. Kind of 2 ways to approach it. One is if you get an early Noxus bat from just like a Galaxy, a Tome, just standard Noxus +1 augment. And the other way to approach this comp is with TF. If you're approaching this comp from TF, you can just build multiple RFCs and kind of flex Mordekaiser and Nilah. Go for like the multiple RFCs, go for frontline items, and then depending on your level 7 rolldown, you can play Mordekaiser, Noxus, or Nilah Sedge. I think it's not very, like that strategy is like a little suspicious because if you don't get Noxus stacks early, you're going to be at a disadvantage. The problem with Tempo Noxus is that I think the builds that don't have double RFC are just worse. It's pretty much impossible to build double RFC when you're playing Tempo Noxus, and they also remove scope weapons, so there's that. I don't know. I think Tempo Noxus is pretty solid. Noxus +1 has one of like the best stats on 2-1. Yeah, I think that playing double mord is also pretty good as well. I know a lot of people actually don't think 7 Noxus is very good. I just don't really know what else you would play because the Slayers aren't that good. Like it's like specifically with a +1. If you don't have a +1, 5 Noxus makes a lot of sense. You can play like 2 mords and a bunch of support units like Jarvan and 5 costs. But otherwise, I think just fitting 7 Noxus in when you have a +1 makes perfect sense to me. But yeah, solid. You just play around mord. The 2 common builds are just the QSS build and the RFC build. I think the RFC build's better. It's just kind of impossible to do it about Pandora's. Comp has a lot of conditions where it can go S tier, but I think A tier is where it belongs just because of its inconsistency. Next is Neeko, DT Neeko Soraka. Honestly, I haven't really seen this do that well unless they hit like 3-star everything. There's that. You actually never go for this damage build. I was trolling in the last video. You just go for Titans and other garbage. Like Titans, Crown Guard are good. Like something like that. But yeah, this is the Dub Turbo version. You just play, if the Ishtal's good, you play the Milio, but you can also just play 2 Tarics on 6, 2 Tarics, 2 Neekos, 2 Sorakas, and then level for either Milio or the Taric. I mean, the comp kind of plays itself. I think it got a lot worse after the patch, but I think I kind of underrated in the last video anyway, so it gets to stay in A tier. Like, if you hit Neeko 3, Taric 3, all that stuff, you can easily win the game. It's kind of harder to hit that stuff now after the nerfs. Piltover Gunners. Yet again, this comp has a lot of arguments to be S tier. However, I don't think I think it's probably like B or C tier without Piltover, but you don't even need like Piltover at 2-1. If you're just getting Piltover value like in the mid game, it's solid. It's like probably good enough. Yeah, the comp is pretty reliant on Piltover. Affiliates got buffed, so that's kind of the main reason why this got better. You just go for 4 to 6 gunner. Ideally, you get a +1 guard to get to go 6. Sejuani Frontline, because she's the best standalone tank right now. And then level for 5 costs. Go for Lessus or GS. Honestly, I don't even know if Ginsu's that good anymore in Affilios, but I don't really know what else you would build. I've seen people just go for like full damage Affilios and they don't even go for Ginsu. It's probably not even bad, but I feel like there's not really that many ways to use Rod in comps like these anyways, so you might as well just go Ginsu. Like Last Whisper and GS are probably way more important though, just in general. So you probably sign those before Ginsu anyways. But you have item prio since you're lose streak, so honestly go for a lot. Sorc Flex, A tier as well. I think it actually got better after like top comps got nerfed. Like I don't think Silco Primary is that good, but Vel'Koz is a beast right now in the patch. They buffed Sona, so like playing around 3 Multicaster in the mid game is actually pretty good. And Ahri has always been solid late game if you can get to her. So I think it deserves A tier. Demon Flare that I talked about last video did get nerfed. I wouldn't recommend playing it unless you have like a disturbing start, but just standard Sorcs are fine. A tier comp. Cho Bitem, A tier as well. Arguments for S tier just because I think it's the most consistent 1-cost reroll comp. Uses items people don't really go for on carousel. It's really easy to get Biss and has a lot of really good matchups. It can actually sustain like Multicaster burst, and like a lot of comps just don't have enough damage to get through Cho'Gath, and it can be super flexible with the carries. Like you don't even have to take Cassio 3. You can play like the newly buffed Azir, you can play Soko, you can play Kai'Sa, you can play a lot of different stuff. And Rek'Sai also got buffed, so sometimes you can go for like Rek'Sai carry if it's like if you have so much money, like on like golden ticket or something, you can like do a Rek'Sai, you can do a ward. So many things you can do. Just prio 6 bruiser plus backline. Alright, next in A tier is going to be Quinn Reroll. I would only recommend playing this comp if you get like a Quinn from an orb or if you get a Demacia or Slayer +1. I think this comp really wants one or the other. Because like you're planning on what your level 7 board is gonna be. It's really hard to justify just playing straight up 7 Demacians on 7 because they're playing so many dead units on your board. I prefer just to drop this. Like honestly, I could see you even just playing 4 Slayer. Like I think 4 Slayer might just be better than 7 Demacia even all spats on 7. If you get a Demacia spat, you can like Demacia Mord and play 7 Demacia over the 4 Slayer. Level for 4 Slayer on 8. If you get a Slayer +1, you can like Slayer either your Fiora if you like high roll Fiora 2 or your Sona and level to 8 for 6 Slayer. BIS Quinn is going to be IE Less Whisper, you get the Radiant DB, and then you go for Jarvan Tank. I don't really think it's even that much worth it to itemize Fiora and really care about her. I would also rather just go for like anti-heal and mana on Sona. I think after Sona buffs, like Sona buff is the main reason why this comp is an A tier. It's like nothing else. The stacking attack speed on Quinn is so good, and even on like Mord later when you have Mord 2 and you can like trio carry him. I think Fiora's a lost cause in a spot like this. That's my thoughts. But if you can get to like 6 Slayer, I think 6 Slayer is the best version because you're playing around Aatrox Mord. I mean that makes sense. But yeah, good comp because of the Sona buff. And then in B tier, we're gonna start with Cassio reroll. There's arguments for this to be an A tier for like if you high roll your items, high roll your Cassios, and get Swain 3, it's very good still. I just think a lot of the times if you get an opener for this comp, you're probably just meant to tempo Noxus and play around Mord. The spot specific to where you would want to reroll Cassio is probably in an Econ Galaxy. You already have a tier and you like natural a bunch of Cassios already. And it's kind of hard to hit Swain 3 because people actually pivoted back into Swain comps at the moment. And Swain 3 is usually your win con in a comp like this. And they also nerfed Cassio. That's another reason. But yeah, blue buff, +2 damage items like Cassio, tank item Swain. Ideally get a Noxus spat. Go for Noxus Neferi or Noxus Aatrox. Good. Decent comp. 4 Rogue Graves. They nerf Rogue. So it goes down from A tier to B tier. Honestly, it might still be good. If people are playing around Sona, It's actually super easy to get rogues to the backline. Problem with this comp is actually dealing with super tanky front lines. And like Mord and Nilah. If Mord and Nilah are on meta, you're not gonna have a fun time as rogues. They're just a really, really bad matchup. And even like against multicasters, if they split their backline up, like yeah, you can kill like one of their backline sides, but then like your rogues are going to like group around the Galio, and your rogues can't even kill a Galio 3. It's so bad against tanks. And then like the other half of their multis can just kill you off. It's not the best. Fiora Kai'Sa duo. They reworked Fiora, made it so she's not like she can't just avoid all damage when she's ulting. She actually gets targeted. They like buffed her other stats, but it wasn't really enough to make her that good. Like it was a nerf on average. So this comp goes down from A tier to B tier. Honestly, it wasn't even A tier in the last patch as well after the augment change, or after like nerf against most augments. So B tier is where it belongs. If you hit, okay, so the good thing about this is that it's relatively uncontested. The only really contested unit on this board is usually just Jarvan. You can hit Kai'Sa for free. You could usually hit Fiora for free. So if you can hit this comp 2-star and have triple combat and have BIS everything, you can probably top 2 still. Like, I think I have this patch. It's just not something you want playing. It's just weaker on average than the other stuff, and Fiora can't really 1v9 like she used to be able to. Next in B tier is Legendary Flex. I mean, I don't really need to talk about it. It's probably should have been not rating this as high as I have recently. Just because it's so inconsistent. You basically, like, Belmouth has to be 2-star to do anything. Kind of same with Ari if you're not playing around Sorcs. And like, really, when are you ever going to be in a spot like this? Like, you're probably just going to roll an 8 for standard comp. It's just the fake news. But like, if you could just teleport to a late game board with all these upgraded, go ahead, sure, it's fine. B tier Bessie Nieko reroll. It's the same thing as the non-Double Trouble Soraka, or the Double Trouble version, but this time you play like more synergies like 4 Bastion, 4 Invoker. This comp was definitely A or S tier last patch. I kind of underrated it, but after the nerfs to Neeko and Soraka, it's probably still in B tier. I think you're probably just not that stable at 2 stars anymore, and you need 3 stars. And probably really good combat augments to win. So B tier it is. Oh yeah, you don't go for the damage build anymore. I was kind of trolling. I had success with it like like previous patches, but it's not as good as just the Titans version. Ravenous Hunter. Only reason why this here is they buffed 4's on. So you probably play 4's on over 6 Juggernaut. And hopefully like the best on is probably either Exoskeleton or Shimmer, I guess. Personally, I think this comp is very bad. But it's the kind of comp that actually does well on low elo. Maybe people get some use out of it. But yeah, I mean, if you want to see it again, BIS is Rageblade, BT, QSS, go for Morello, Blue of Silco. They force on now. 7 Bilge. I think, in my opinion, like they did just buff Bilgewater and a lot of stuff. And I think if you have like Rising Infamy on like a +1 Galaxy, you can actually be pretty decent. However, I think this comp is just worse than the Nilah Sedge version. That's my issue with it. I don't really see merit to playing this when you can just play Nilah Sedge. And like, yeah, you do like less damage from Bilge and all that stuff, but you have a way tankier frontline, so your Nilah can actually scale into the fight better. So that's my problem with 7 Bilge. And then we have Kayle. In my opinion, I think Quinn is better than Kayle right now. The buff to Sona is a buff to Kayle. If you get a +1 for this, it's pretty good. Like, Kayle is the comp that can definitely succeed in a patch like this. It just requires a little bit of luck. You need to hit all your units with you probably need like a Monster Slayer +1 as well. Same with Quinn. I just think it's more reliable to get into like push levels with Quinn and rather than reroll Kayle. Well, that's me. And it's gonna be it for tier list. I think I yapped for a while. Hopefully you got some use out of it. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to playing TFT. Peace.